Okay, thanks everyone for joining our Quiddity webinar today. So last time we went through a high-level view of all the features that Quiddity offers, but today we wanted to go through how to actually do those different features and use them. So before we get started, I just wanted to quickly walk you through some of the Zoom meeting controls. So you'll have a little Q&A toggle down the bottom, which is where you can drop any questions as you go through, and I'll get a notification of those questions that you send through, and then at the end of the session I'll go through those questions and answer them and give you a live demo. To get started, I just wanted to give some context of the demo environment that we've got set up. Currently we've got a demo environment set up with the context of an IT company. So today's demo will be focusing on how an IT company would generally use Quiddity. And to get started, this IT company is just about to go to an expo and start a campaign around some Office 365 marketing. So I'm just going to go into Quiddity and under the marketing section, I'm going to view the campaigns. Now this company already has 3 campaigns running, as you can see, but I'm going to create a new one in this case. So Microsoft are currently running a special Office 365 campaign, and this IT company wants to capitalize on that. So they're going to create a campaign called Microsoft Office 365. The type of campaign could be any of these different types, but in this case we'll say that it's an email campaign. The status would be running. They've got a $5,000 budget for this campaign, and they're expecting to generate 50 leads, and the expected revenue would be 20,000. We'll put a start date and an end date. So kicking off today, it's an end of financial year sale, and it would be ending on the 30th of June, so it's a 2-week campaign. And then I can put a description in here of any of the other details that are important for that campaign. For example, any of the special offers that Microsoft are actually providing. Once I've saved that campaign, you can see that it's here in the list of campaigns, and I can go ahead and start adding contacts. So for example, once I've done the mailing campaign, if we get some feedback from customers saying that they're interested, we can go ahead and start entering their details into Quiddity. If they're a company, we can set them up as a company. So I'll just put this company in as company XYZ. The relationship type, so they are a suspect because we suspect they're going to become a customer because they've shown interest. We'll put in a name, John Doe. Put in a location, so head office. It could be 5. Parramatta. Put in the email. Company email could be the same, and now save. So I've set up this contact, and from here I can start adding records and relating them to the contact. So in this case, I want to create a lead out of this contact. So up here on the quick add button, I can go ahead and add a lead. I can give the lead name Office 365 campaign. And I can find company XYZ and the lead value. So based off the discussions this customer's had, he said he's interested in ordering 50 licenses, for example, and I know that each license is worth $10 each, so say 5,500 license lead value, and the lead stage would be prospecting, and then we can have an expected close date. So in this case, it would be the end of the month because that's when the campaign is ending. And I can go out and fill in other information if required, but for the purposes of the demo, I'll just go ahead and save this lead. So now that I've got an active lead, I can go and continue working on this lead. I can assign it to the campaign that we'd set up for that and save that record again. And as we move through the lead cycle or the sales cycle, you will get to a stage where you would have to create a quote for that customer. So you can see the lead is here, and here I can go ahead and create quote, sales order, and invoice. But again, for the purpose of the demo, I'll go and create a quote. So you can see that automatically the system is already putting the company name in and all the details that we've already entered, and putting an estimated sign-off date. So a single lead might have multiple quotes with different sign-off dates. So again, just for consistency, I'll put that as the end of the month, and I'll click next. And now this has generated a quote for me, and I need to start adding products and services. So for this campaign, I can go and add a product. If I look here, I've already got some product in the system. If I didn't have the product already listed in the system, I could just click on add new. So I've selected a product here. You can see it's already been able to fill out the description, and now I can save changes. And if I continue to build this, I can add in some pricing. So they wanted 50 licenses and the sell price is $50. I'll go ahead and save that. And there might be some services related to this as well. So I'll start adding services. For example, if you're doing Office 365 migration, we might need to add in those details. So you can see that there's categories and subcategories here. I'm just going to start entering a buy price and a sell price for these services. And the quantity would be 1 because we're just going to migrate everything over in one go. And then I can go save and close. And so you can see that this quote is now starting to be built. And from here, I can actually preview the quote. And this is generating a PDF copy of the quote. And you can see here, this is what you'll be able to send to the customer to get their approval and their sign off. Now from here, this is where the system really gets powerful because you can start tracking the progress of this quote with the workflow that's built in. So up here, you'll see the current status is scoping. And as I work through this, I might say that I've now submitted the proposal, and this automatically updates it to any other users to see where the quote's at. And I might get to a stage where I can get approval and upload a signed version of it. So I'm just going to choose any PDF copy for this demo. And now you can see that the system is prompting me, do I want to update the lead to close as well, because I've received sign off on the quote. So if I mark that lead as converted, I can now go ahead and actually update the actual revenue of that lead to 4,500 because I added professional services and licenses. And then I can click OK. So that's automatically updated the lead for me as well now. And now we can move on to the next stage of the workflow, which is actually doing the work. So if I go back to the quote screen, you can see that this quote that I've just created has some conversion buttons next to it. I can either convert that quote into a sales order, or I can convert it into an invoice directly. So in this case, I want to convert this to a sales order. So by the click of a button, I've been able to convert that quote into a sales order, and now the system is prompting me to, do I want to update this customer to this contact, sorry, to an actual customer, because now they're actually doing business with us. So I'll say yes, I'll save that. And you can see here that the workflow has gone from lead to quote to sales order. And within this sales order screen, I've got the same products and services that I selected for the quote. And now I can start creating purchase orders and invoices related to that specific sales order. So for example, I might have to create a purchase order. For the licenses. Microsoft is already there as a supplier, and I keep this billing information. And down here, I can actually go ahead and purchase the quantity, the unit price of what I'm purchasing for. And then hit save. So I'm just creating a purchase order for the licenses, and I didn't need the service in there because we're going to actually do that work ourselves. So now you can see that there's a purchase order here that's been submitted for an order of 50, and then that can be processed, and then I can start doing the work. So I can actually come in here and assign a task. And I might give that to David and say that he's starting on this from Monday and it ends on Friday. And I could go ahead and put in, please migrate this customer to Office 365 and hit save. Now that's automatically sent an email to David. So he'll be informed that he has a task and he can log into the system and start working. He can also go ahead and start logging his work against this record so that at the end of the work order or sales order, you can have full visibility on what he's been working on and how long he's spent. And it gives you a true indication of the profitability. Of course, you would also be moving this sales order from draft status through the workflow. So it's been approved. Now you could say that it's in progress, it's in working status, and you can continue going through that workflow until obviously you've finished. And then I'm going to make it as complete. And from here, I'll start being able to generate invoices. So you can see down here, I've got a create invoice button appearing. If I select that, I can decide how I'm going to invoice the customer, either via a deposit, a partial invoice, or a full invoice. So in this case, I want to do a partial invoice because I just want to charge the customer for the licenses that have been purchased. I don't want to charge them for the migration yet because that's going to happen over the next week. And this is another great feature of Quiddity because you can actually split your invoicing up in any sort of manner that fits the business scenario. So if I just click on convert to invoice, that's gone ahead and actually created an invoice for me. And you can see down here that there's an invoice now in the status of draft. So I'll click on that. And again, you can see that now it's automatically taken the line items from that sales order, just specifically for the licenses, and it's put this in the invoice. And of course, you click on a preview copy of that and you'll be able to see the PDF version, which you'll be able to send to the customer. And then as they make payments, you can go and add payments to this invoice. Alternatively, if you have Xero, you can also integrate with Xero, and that would automatically push all of these invoices through to Xero so that you don't need to do any double entry of data. So moving back into the sales order, you can now see that there's a purchase order here, which gives you an indication of how much you've spent purchasing the licenses. There's an invoice which gives you an indication of how much you've invoiced the customer. And if we fast forward a week where David's finished the migration, I could go ahead and then create another invoice. And again, I'll select partial invoice and I'll select the service that's left over. And again, I'll hit convert to invoice. And now you can see that the sales order has been completed because all the invoices related to it have been generated, which means it's automatically closed. So if I view the sales order, it still gives me this indication of exactly where things are at because I can see these invoices here now in the draft status, and I can go and edit these invoices as required. So this invoice may need to be assigned to another user within the organization so that they can follow up. So if I go and assign this to Sam or Sarah, who could be the accountant that's following up on the invoices, I can send them an email saying that they now have this invoice assigned, and they can then log into Quiddity and start chasing up the customer about the invoice, and then again following it through the standard workflow up in this top right hand corner until you get the invoice to the final status of finished. Once all the payments have been received and added, that whole workflow has been finished off. So now that you've seen at a high level how the workflow runs between contacts, leads, quotes, sales orders, and invoices, I also wanted to point out another way which you could use Quiddity, which doesn't follow that exact same workflow, and it could be used for a different business scenario. So if we go into projects, we might be running a different type of campaign, and it could be for a SharePoint implementation, which is a Microsoft product. And we could go ahead and create a project for this. And I can put a start and end date, so starting today and ending next month. You can put all the details around the project here, and now I can relate it to a customer. The company XYZ, click save. So now that we've migrated this customer to Office 365, they wanted to do a SharePoint migration as well, and we've gone ahead and set up a project for that. And within this project, I can actually start adding members. So out of any of the users within the company, I can add them to the project, and they'll be notified. And then I can start adding tasks as well. So adding a kickoff meeting, that would be next Monday. And go ahead and add some subtasks to that. So create a presentation, and I might assign that to another staff member so that they can create the presentation for the kickoff meeting. And you can see that this is automatically adding these tasks into the Gantt chart view. And if I need to, I can drag and drop, and I can relate them and start working on the project plan. And once that project plan is completed, you can export that to PDF as well and share it with the customer so they have a good understanding of exactly how the project is going to commence. And rather than going and quoting on the customer, you might just want to start invoicing them directly from the project screen. So from here, I can start creating invoices and purchase orders. So if I needed to order some SharePoint licenses, I could do that via a purchase order here, or I could create invoices to kick off the project from a deposit payment. And this gives you a complete view of the whole billing for the project. Along with this, down the bottom, you've got the communication area where you can see exactly what's been happening throughout the project lifecycle. And again, you can be logging your time directly against this project. So I might put in time that today I spent 1 hour of billable work. I'm assigning it to my manager. The post-sales activity, and the specific task that I worked on was creating the presentation. I can go ahead and save that. And as I save those timesheet entries, it will give you an exact understanding of where I've been spending my time, or where anyone that's working on this project has been spending their time. So again, you can start working out the profitability. So that's just another way that you can start using Quiddity without following the lead to quote sales cycle. You can start using it directly from the project management angle as well. And of course, once you've started using the system, it always ends up at reporting. So from here, I can come in here and see quote summary report. And you can start seeing all the quotes that have been created. I could filter by just the last 7 days. And now you can see this quote that I created in the last 7 days has actually been signed off, and it gives you that exact understanding of what's been happening in your business. And of course, going back to the dashboard, you can see the pipeline, which would have been affected by the leads that we've created. You can see the projects, so I can come in here and change the project view now and get a snapshot of where these projects are at. I can see the marketing campaign, so now that I've created that additional campaign, we can see that Microsoft Office 365 here. We've got one actual lead against the expected leads of 50, and we can start to generate the revenue out of that as well. So this is actually how an IT company can use some of the features in Quiddity on a day-to-day basis. Was there any questions? Okay, great question. So you don't have to use the sales order. You can actually create a quote, and directly from a quote, you can invoice the customer. So if I quickly create a quote, I can give you an example. Might be company XYZ. The reference is SharePoint implementation. Estimated sign off could be for 2 weeks. I can relate that to a lead if I want to, but again, I don't actually have to use the lead. I could directly create a quote for this customer. Now that I've created a quote, I'll go ahead and quickly add some line items to it. So SharePoint implementation. Give it price. Save my changes. And as I work through this quote and get approval, I'll quickly upload an approval document. And now you can see that from this view, I can directly create it as a sales order or straight away create an invoice as well. So you don't have to go through that whole workflow that we went through today. I just wanted to give you an end-to-end overview, but you can also skip the steps because every business is different, and it might make more sense for you just to go ahead and directly create an invoice from here. And again, it gives you that great visibility that you've gone directly from a quote to invoice. It's automated all that data transfer, so you're not double data entering anything, and you can start following up for payment. Okay, another good question. So how much does Quiddity cost? So there's 2 options for Quiddity. One is $25 per user per month, and that's based off a monthly commitment. Or there's an annual commitment, which is slightly cheaper at $20 per user per month. And yet another good question. So we do have a mobile app for both iOS and Android, and that includes the features from contacts management, to-dos, tasks, and also leads. And there's more features being released for those mobile apps quite regularly as well. Okay, well, that's all the questions for the moment. So thanks everyone for joining. Appreciate your time. If you need to get in touch, you've got our contact details on the website. You can also post feedback at any time while you're using Quiddity just by clicking on this button and putting in some information that will send directly through to us. And feel free to get in touch if you have any questions. Thank you.
Quiddity, simple, beautiful workflow.